What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If. If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my second channel, so if you want some more what ifs, go check out my other channels. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. Ned found himself staring at a little girl held by a whore in a brothel currently owned by Littlefinger, something that wasn't lost to Naruto when Ned and Jory arrived here to see the woman who Robert had a bastard child with. Indeed, the baby girl in question had many of Robert's features in her, and woman in question swore by the old gods and knew that he was the only one who could have been the father. When John Aaron came to visit you, what did he want, asked Ned at last, since he saw the woman gushing over the little girl she brought into the world. Lord Aaron wasn't that sort of man, my lord. He didn't come here to be with one of us like ever other lord does when in King's Landing. He just wanted to know if the girl was happy, healthy too, said the woman, with Ned now smiling. Since John was like that, she looks healthy enough to me, a girl should want for nothing, said Ned while he gazed at the girl and was reminded of his own daughters when they were born. Before leaving here, take this bag of gold, leave this profession, my dear, and leave it quickly. This is no place for a little girl to be raised, whispered Naruto when Ned left the room and gave the now shocked woman enough gold to start a new life. Great sage, I couldn't if Lord Baelish finds out I have this and try to leave, said the woman in shock and hand of fear. If Lord Baelish does find out and tries anything, tell him I gave you the bag of gold for you to use to start a life with your child, and I will do to him what I did to the mountain. If he persists on the issue, tell him if he doesn't allow you to leave with both the girl and the gold in your hands, I will ensure he spends the rest of his days in everlasting agony, replied Naruto, with the woman nodding and thanking him for his kindness before she left the room with joy in her heart. As for Naruto, he knew what would happen if things went sour here in King's Landing and what it meant for Robert's bastard children. At the very least, one girl could be saved from the future he saw as a precaution should Joffrey manage to rule the Iron Throne. Hearing a commotion outside, Naruto walked out of the brothel to see Jaime Lannister with Lannister men getting off their horses and drawing their weapons. Jaime didn't look too happy to see Ned Stark, nor his men for that matter, and it was causing the people near them to panic. What's the meaning of this, Lannister demanded Peter sternly while seeing Lannister men, armed and facing down the Starks. Get back inside where it's safe, Lord Baelish. I'm looking for my brother. You remember my brother, don't you? Lord Stark, blonde hair, sharp tongue, and physically short for a man, questioned Jaime with his sword drawn. I remember him well. Out of all of you who visited, he was the most polite, replied Ned with Jaime's smile increasing slightly. Yes, well, it seems my brother got himself into a bit of trouble on the road after leaving Winterfell, and coincides with meeting your wife at Summon over some false accusations she made. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you, demanded Jaime with Naruto moving closer to the group. Actually I do. There was a miscommunication between Catelyn Stark and your brother over a dispute one I am currently, or rather a copy of me is currently handling. I assure you, Sir Jaime, that your brother is not a prisoner of Lady Catelyn and is merely traveling with her to see this issue is resolved in a civilized manner, replied Naruto with Jaime glancing at him. As you handled the issue surrounding Mountain at the tourney, challenged Jaime with Naruto's eyes narrowing. First, the Mountain deserved his death for his past sins. No one can dispute that fact. It cannot be disputed. Second, if I wanted to hurt Tyrion, or you for that matter, Sir Jaime Lannister, I know far worse ways than what I did to Gregor Clegane. Then shooting a blade of lightning into his chest, replied Naruto coldly before Jaime and his men drew their weapons, and the Starks drew their. My lord, stop, I will bring the city watch, threatened Peter before turning around to do just that. Come on, I'd rather you both die with sword in hand, said Jaime with Ned drawing his sword while Naruto stood still and clearly not amused. If you threaten my lord again, warned Jory with his weapon at the ready, threaten as and I'm going to open your lord from balls to brain and see what Starks and even a sage are made of, questioned Jaime sarcastically. I guess being a Kingsguard and Lannister doesn't buy much common sense, does it, Sir Jaime? Asked Naruto while moving in front of Ned. It buys us a lot of things, and I have plenty of common sense to know it took you quite a bit of effort to make that little lightning trick of yours difficult to do when facing down one or more opponents not tied down by magical chains, commented Jaime with Naruto nodding. True, it's not meant for open combat, it's more of an assassination or execution style form of taking a life, but that's not what I was referring to in terms of common sense. Common sense is knowing when not to pick a fight with someone or a group of people who could best you any day of the week. It was one of the first lessons I gave Ser Barristan during his younger years, replied Naruto with Jaime's smile becoming a sneer. So why do I feel you just insulted not only yourself but the Starks as well, asked Jaime in a cocky sense while Naruto sighed. It's amazing your father still wants you to be his heir after all this time, you know, Sir Jaime. I bet if your father knew some of things I do, About you, he would trade you in for a pet monkey and simply dye its hair blonde, remarked Naruto, while Jaime took real offense to that. Kill them all except Ned Stark, commanded Jaime before his two men threw spears at Huggard and Will, but Naruto made two clones which caught the spears, spun in a circle and threw them back at their owners with both spears piercing their skulls. As I said, you lack common sense, remarked Naruto, while Jaime recovered from the shock, and the rest of his men charged with him to do battle against the Starks and the Sage. Despite of the loss of two Lannister men, Jaime's side was holding out pretty well against the opposition, but it was clear the Stark forces were not all talk like he first believed. He had actually brought more men to have the numbers advantage, but it seemed that alone was not enough to defeat the dreaded Wolves of North. As for his own opponent, that was Ned Stark, the son of Tywin Lannister, found himself in a fight that was truly thrilling and against someone he had always wanted to fight. For years he had heard stories about Ned Stark's fighting prowess on the battlefield, slaying one foe after the next with his trusty sword Ice and quickly becoming a swordsman of legend. This was like having an itch he had always wanted to scratch, and until now Jaime never had the chance. It was a true testament of his skills if he could best Ned Stark and force him to admit defeat. While Ned was dueling Jaime in a battle of skill, Naruto was easily dealing with the men who came after him. It wasn't hard, they already had their swords arched to swing down at him, and he easily dodged their strikes with superior speed. Punch to the face, breaking a jaw here, a foot to the kneecap to shatter it there, and hitting one man in the chest with his staff with enough force to send the Lannister back 20 feet if not for a building. While the red gold armor worn was destroyed, Naruto even unleashed a roundhouse kick with enough force to spin the helmet of one Lannister solder around, so now unconscious man couldn't even see what was in front of his face. A sudden cry of pain turned Naruto's attention over to Ned, who had been easily holding his own against Jaime and landed a nice cut on Jaime's handsome face. But that wasn't the cause for the scream, as one of the Lannister men in his injured state had thrown his spear at Ned just before Jory could fully run him through, and the blade of the weapon pierced the Lord of the North's right leg from behind, thus forcing Ned to kneel while still fighting off Jaime, who moved in for the kill, and the two glaring at each other. This is how it will and always should be. Ned Stark, the wolf kneeling before the lion, said Jaime smugly, with Ned staring up defiantly. Brave words for a man who wasn't even responsible for forcing me into this weakened state. At least I can cover up my wound from the public. Yours not so much, stated Ned, while Jaime tried to press the attack, but found the Lord of the North was not so easily subdued. In this position my wound will heal quickly enough. Yours leaves you vulnerable. A wounded wolf is easily hunted when it can't defend himself from hunters, remarked Jaime with a smirk. Then I'll just even the playing field in terms of injuries, said Naruto before appearing out of nowhere and slicing into Jaime's face with a kunai to make the man step back to clutch his bleeding face. Bastard, exclaimed Jaime, while feeling this injury was much deeper than the one Ned got him with earlier and leave a far more permanent scar. Run along, sir, Jaime, run before I decide to cut deeper into your flesh and armor and far more vital areas of your body, warned Naruto coldly, with Jaime looking around and saw his men were either dead or severely injured. This isn't over, I'll make you regret this, demon sage you too, Ned Stark, exclaimed Jaime before fleeing on his horse. Coward Lannisters never did have the spine to see things through to the end when they lost, remarked Ned before trying to stand and found himself unable to do it without the pain level in his leg going up. We need to get you medical attention, my lord, said Jory while helping Ned to his feet, and the other men of the North helping their lord up off the ground once the spear was removed. Even if it made the pain worse, get him back to the Tower of the Hand where it's safe. We can treat him there, replied Naruto, with Jory and the others nodding. Thank you, great sage, for helping us. I feel we would have died if you weren't here to fight the Lannisters, said Jory while Naruto waved him off. Jaime Lannister was being irrational and an idiot. Hopefully he'll learn from this act of stupidity and not do it again, though I have my doubts. He has more arrogance than his house is gold, commented Naruto while escorting the group back to the Tower of the Hand. Tower of the Hand. Sometime later, sure enough, word of the altercation between Stark and Lannister forces had reached the king and queen, with the rumors making the truth muddy to interpretation. Some said that Ned and his men went to a brothel to fuck some whores. Others said Ned went to get his men from there but didn't partake with the women due to his men being rough with the women and were forced to leave. Some said Jaime's men were there to partake, but the Stark men had made that impossible and the latter were drunk after having too much wine. The only thing they could agree on was the demon sage himself had been there and part of the fighting, though which side he was truly on during that time was unclear, despite the fact the only one to suffer casualties during the fighting were those of the Lannisters. Still, the royal couple wanted answers, and in Cersei's case, given she was a Lannister by blood, demanded the heads of the Stark men involved. When the two arrived, Naruto was sitting in a chair by Ned's bed while the man's leg was slightly raised and bandaged tightly to stop the bleeding due to the intense pain the man was feeling. Naruto had him sedated and wanted it kept that way until the leg was healed further, while he could have tried to use his chakra to heal Ned, but the man was a full-grown adult and not a child like Bran had been when used to heal his head injury with a body that was fully developed. It could not adapt or properly adjust to Naruto's chakra. If it was allowed to enter Ned's system, it would have been worse than getting stabbed in the leg. I want them arrested. They were fighting and causing a commotion outside of a brothel, no doubt fucking whores and siring bastard children. Your former hand should know better that just because he got away with the legitimizing one bastard doesn't mean his wife will allow him to do it a second time, commented Cersei while Robert glared at her. Shut it, woman. Unlike your brother who turned around and fled King's Landing before answers could be demanded of him, Ned is still here to explain himself. The fact Jaime isn't here says a lot already about who is most likely in the wrong, stated Robert while Cersei looked red with anger. The only reason your former friend is here is because of his injury. The man has clearly forsaken his honor, said Cersei, and her words enraged Robert even more. Hold your tongue, woman, or the next time you speak out like that I will have it cut out and thrown into a fire, so no maester in all of the 7 kingdoms can put it back in your mouth. I mean it. Your father's wrath and my crown's debt to him be damned. Ned Stark has more honor in his one finger than most of the so-called knights this realm has to offer, and that includes your damn brother Jaime. Now shut up and let's hear what Ned Stark has to say when he awakens, commanded Robert while Cersei looked ready to scream out in rage. Oh, Shikamaru would love this, thought Naruto with a smirk behind his mask, knowing the lazy Nara would say something about this being troublesome. The veil with Tyrion. Tyrion Lannister was a man who could say, lived a somewhat cushy life for the most part, despite the hatred his father had for him in connection to the death of the woman who birthed Tyrion into the world, while Tywin Lannister had despised his youngest son for being alive the way he was and for the death of the old lion's wife. The Lord of House Lannisters could not kill his own son. He wasn't a kinslayer, no matter how tempting the thought might have been. The moment he saw Tyrion for the first time following the death of the man's wife, Tyrion had no doubt that if it wasn't for some form of Lannister family pride, honor, or simply not wishing to be called a kinslayer, his father would have killed him within the hour of his birth. Instead, Tywin had made Tyrion's life miserable in other ways by making it known to all that he had little love for his youngest son. In turn, many people around Tyrion had either looked at the imp of House Lannister with disdain like his father, or outright ignore him unless they had no choice but to speak to the man. Not that Tyrion minded, at least not anymore. He took it as a challenge of sorts, get people to see him as more than just the imp of House Lannister or Lord Tywin's deformed son responsible for the death of Lady Lannister. As such, Tyrion compensated for his deformed physical appearance by secretly strengthening his mind so he could say at least some form of himself was not a waste of creation. So the man read book upon book, as a child learning, expanding his mind until he was intellectually equal if not superior to that of full-grown adults twice his age. Combined with his sharp wit, Tyrion Lannister could almost speak on an equal level with his father and any other member of his family. There was just one small problem with this form of mental superiority over that of other adults, and the name of this problem, arrogance. Tyrion's wit mixed with his crude humor and making it loudly known he was a Lannister had on occasion got the young man in some serious trouble that his father and his brother Jaime had on several occasions saved him from when growing up. The principle behind not leaving him to suffer or die was that no one messed with a Lannister, even if the Lannister was the least liked of the family. So sitting here in a 3-walled cell with the 4th one being non-existent and designed to have the prisoner fall to his death was quite the experience for Tyrion. He had slept with the pigs in horse stables and closets, and many beds belonging to horse, the last one his favorite by far, but this was an experience to tell his siblings, niece and nephews about when he saw them again. If he saw them again, thinking about his family made Tyrion frown as he began to use his keen intellect to reflect on his past relationship with them, namely his father, brother and sister, on where they stood in his life in terms of like, dislike and neutral. Jaime was in the realm between neutral and like, which was no surprise given the man had defended him multiple times when his sharp tongue hurt the pride of certain knights and sellswords. But at the same time, Tyrion was rather envious of his big brother because the man had everything in terms of look, skills with a sword, titles to inherit back at Casterly Rock, and of course their father's love. Speaking of their father, it didn't take a genius to know where the man stood, and even less in regards to Cersei. Neither loved him, they were family, but didn't have the love a family should have in terms of love. Tyrion even wanted to joke, saying his father would sooner legitimize his bastard if he ever had one than acknowledge his youngest as heir to Casterly Rock. With Jaime serving in the Kingsguard, the only reason Tyrion didn't joke about it was because his father would despise him further, and the other was because the physically short Lannister feared the old lion might just do it if given the idea. Father probably would do it just to spite me. Whether said bastard was even worthy of it or not is irrelevant thought. Tyrion sadly before focusing on his sister Cersei. The woman hated Tyrion even more than their father. He was even sure she had planned to have him killed at least on 2 if not 3 separate occasions. Not that he could ever prove she had tried to have him killed, not that the woman cared if she were caught or not. If there was one crime Cersei would have no problem committing and being called a kinslayer over it was killing him again. The only reason she didn't was because their father wouldn't allow it. But Tyrion knew as well as Cersei did that their father wouldn't be around forever, and the old lion was starting to show his age. It wouldn't be long before Tywin Lannister stepped down as the Lord of Casterly Rock due to his age preventing him from ruling through fear. Cersei would no doubt wait for that moment in time when that happened and strike accordingly with an assassin on hand capable of hurting Tyrion the instant she had an opening. And speaking of his sister, there was now the issue of her 3 children. His niece and nephews. Myrcella was an innocent girl. She was just like Cersei had been as a little girl, but without the attitude of being a Lannister, and Tyrion would wager Myrcella would become quite the beauty in the future. Tommen was an innocent boy too. He had a gentle nature about him, preferring to either avoid confrontation or disarm it with words over the use of swords, a rare quality for a Lannister to have given the history of their house, but a good one. Nonetheless, Tyrion could actually see Tommen taking up the profession of a scholar or even a maester to one day become Grand Maester. Grand Maester Tommen Lannister has a nice ring to it, thought Tyrion while making a mental note to see what interests the young boy had in terms of books and knowledge. Of course, after that particular line of thought ended, Tyrion found himself frowning at the memory of his nephew Joffrey, and how the boy was not right in the head. Tyrion had known from the start that Joffrey had mental issues when he killed a pregnant cat, and the belief it would impress his father the king. Add to the fact that Cersei, the boy's mother, was constantly spoiling him and letting the brat get away with his crimes on some crude principle that royalty, especially if the royalty are of Lannister blood, could do whatever they wanted. Tyrion was sure the Mad King thought the same way with his own family, and look where that got him: a sword through the back by his own Kingsguard, the sacking of King's Landing by his former Hand of the King, and the death of his grandchildren at the hands of the Mountain and Amory Lorch. Something to remember when I decide to write my own personal book about these things, when I become a tired old man in need of doing something besides rotting away in my elderly years, if I ever do get the chance to live that long. That is, thought Tyrion while he glanced out at the terrain in front of him, where the 4th wall of his cell would normally be located at. Least the view from here wasn't half bad now, if only it wasn't deadly. When falling asleep V's Dothrak, Daenerys found herself looking over the dragon eggs now in her possession. Viserys had accused her of stealing them when he found out they were no longer in his tent. She of course had told him the demon sage came to visit her after their family spat and felt they were better off in her capable hands. Fortunately, Ser Jorah Mormont was in the room to back up the claim behind this and kept Viserys from acting out irrationally again. He was not pleased by this, but not even the beggar king of Essos was going to contend with the will of the demon sage for now anyway. Daenerys suspected if these dragons hatched and could be commanded by him, Viserys would unleash them on the demon sage to teach the man some kind of lesson. Not that Daenerys believed her brother could tame the dragons, or teach the sage any lesson of any kind as she attended to the eggs. One thing Daenerys noticed was how warm they could get when near a fire, and how they didn't burn near the heat. Part of her wondered if the secret to awakening lay within the flames, and was the secret the sage wanted her to one day know. Deciding to test the theory, she put it near some coals that would provide the egg with the necessary heat and watched the oval object glow from such warmth. Sadly, it did not hatch, but Daenerys was sure she was on the right path. Picking up the egg, she felt the warmth from it in her hands, but one of the handmaidens thought she would burn herself and rushed to protect her Khaleesi. To both their shocks, only the handmaiden herself was badly burned and Daenerys herself was unharmed. It was in that moment Daenerys Targaryen realized just how much of her family's hidden strength lay within her, the strength of a true Targaryen. Tower of the Hand. Ned Stark opened his eyes to find himself on a bed, his own actually in his room at the Tower of the Hand, and saw his leg was bandaged. Turning to his right, he saw Naruto, their mask and all, sitting in a chair beside him and motioning with his head to the end of the bed. Following the motion, Ned saw the king and queen were in the room with serious expressions on their faces. Your pardon, your grace, I would rise, but I'm afraid I'm unable to at the moment, said Ned with Robert at least smirking at him. Cersei on the Hand was not amused by this. Easy, Ned, your leg is still all messed up from the spear. I did what I could, but a full-grown adult can't really take my power when it comes to healing. You are lucky I know more in the ways of healing than relying on my energy to simply heal wounds, remarked Naruto with Ned nodding in appreciation for that. Do you realize what you have done, Lord Stark? What the sage has done to Jaime, what your wife has done with my little brother? Tyrion asked Cersei in a demanding tone. They did nothing I did not command, explained Ned with Cersei looking at him with anger in her eyes growing further. It's all right, Ned, you don't have to defend me, your wife or yourself, for the things that have popped up. I already explained to Jaime that there was a miscommunication and the dispute Tyrion had with Catelyn Stark was being handled by a copy of myself. At this very moment Tyrion is traveling with Catelyn Stark, his friend, to the Vale before they head to Winterfell to handle this matter civilly. He is not a prisoner. Jaime didn't listen to what was said to him, and tried to use brute force instead, explained Naruto with Cersei scowling while Ned looked at Robert and nodded in agreement that everything the sage just told them was true. Be as that may, I want Tyrion Lannister be returned soon. Ned, you will make peace with Jaime Lannister, ordered Robert, with Ned adjusting himself on his bed. He tried to butcher my men and start a confrontation with us, countered Ned, while his lead wound was proof enough something had happened. You lie, Lord Stark. You were seen coming out of a brothel drunk when attacking Jaime, no doubt trying to get away with having another bastard after legitimizing the last one, said Cersei angrily, with Ned glaring at the woman and would have said something back, but Naruto's hand shot to his shoulder. Quiet, commanded Robert, with Naruto narrowing his eyes at Cersei. So Littlefinger wanted to keep the investigation a secret from Robert and played it off that Ned's men were drunk after coming out of a brothel. Not bad, Lord Baelish, smearing the very honor of the Stark name while keeping your own involvement's a secret so you can play both sides, thought Naruto while glancing from Cersei to Ned. I will not be quiet. My one brother is injured and fled King's Landing. The other is now a captive of this man's wife. I took you for a king, exclaimed Cersei, with Robert now growling at her. I said hold your tongue, ordered Robert, but it was clear Cersei was not going to let up on this. Some king I married, with the way you act around these two. Perhaps I should wear the armor and you can wear the gown, taunted Cersei before she was backhanded by Robert for her words. Okay, now it's getting real, thought Naruto, with Cersei glaring at Robert. If you think this stopped me, then you are wrong. I will wear it like a badge of honor, said Cersei while Robert's glare intensified. Wear it in silence or I will do it again, warned Robert, with Cersei glaring some more, but decided she had pressed her luck enough for one day and left to be elsewhere. Well, that was mildly entertaining, thought Naruto while Robert poured himself some wine to drink. You see what she does to me, my loving wife. Ha, still I shouldn't have hit her. That was not very kingly, said Robert before he drank once more from his cup. Well, at least you can admit it. Most men would make up an excuse about not doing it again only to do just that, said Naruto while Ned and Robert were silent for a time, since they didn't know what to say to the other after their verbal fight in the small council room. Damn it, Ned, I don't want you to leave. You're a brother to me, more than my own by blood. You know I never loved my brothers. Did you know that? A sad thing for a man with younger siblings to admit, but it's true. You were the brother I chose, Ned, and damn it all, if I let the issue surrounding my throne destroy us. We'll talk more after the hunt, said Robert, with Ned looking confused. The hunt, asked Ned, with Robert nodding before handing him the Hand of the King badge, and had a smirk on his face again. Killing things on a hunt always helped me clear my head. Why do you think I went on so many after all the times I spent arguing with my loving wife? Besides, this one will help me think clearly about some of the things that were said earlier about the Targaryen girl, about my honor as a man, as a Baratheon, and as the king of the Seven Kingdoms. This will probably be an extra long hunt. Given everything we said in that room, you will of course have to sit on the Iron Throne until I return. Gives you a chance to see what it is like ruling as a king, even if it's only temporary and only in spirit. Chances are you will hate it more than I do, replied Robert, with Ned looking at him while he left. Damn it, Ned, only you could quit your job as the second most powerful person in all of the Seven Kingdoms and then get said job back soon after a fight with a member of the Kingsguard, joked Naruto, with Ned grumbling. Your humor surrounding my suffering leaves something to be desired, Naruto. At this point I would rather have a boring conversation with Pycelle, commented Ned, with Naruto smirking behind his mask. Ouch, and the injured wolf lands a witty remark worthy of his station as Hand of the King, countered Naruto dramatically, with Ned sighing. This was going to be a long day. V's Dothrak Khal Drogo watched his beautiful wife go through the sacred ritual of eating a heart of a horse while the ＤISCLAIMER were reading the omens surrounding the woman and their future child. The Dothraki in the tent waited with anticipation as they saw Daenerys dig into Organ and staring at Drogo the entire time. It was clear to Drogo that she wanted to prove her worth to him as his wife and mother of their future child. She had a fire in her that was showing promising signs for Daenerys as a Khaleesi and a mother to their child. She has to eat the whole heart, asked Viserys with disgust and fascination. Yes, every bit of it. If not, it will not bode well for us as part of the Horde, said Yora while he watched Daenerys eat the heart in her hands. I hope that wasn't my horse, commented Viserys offhand. She is doing well, almost half the heart has been devoured, remarked Yora with a hint of being impressed. She'll never keep it down, said Viserys with no confidence in his sister's ability to eat the heart fully. The prince is riding. I have heard the thunder of his hooves swift as the wind he rides. His enemies will cower before him, their wives will weep tears of blood. She is going to have a Boy, said Yora after translating what the ＤISCLAIMER was saying about the future surrounding Daenerys and the child she carried. He won't be a true Targaryen, he won't be a true dragon, just some half-breed monster ruling over horsefuckers, commented Viserys, but deep down he feared his sister's child when born and what said child could do if allowed to grow up into a fierce warrior. By this point Daenerys had finished eating the heart, keeping the powerful urge to throw back up the organ down so not to shame her husband. It was incredibly difficult though, given what her body just ate, and was gagging all the same, with everyone in the tent now watching intently to see if she would pass the final test. And she did. The stallion mounts the world, the stallion is call of calls, he shall unite the people under a single Khailsar, all the people of the world shall be his herd, translated Jorah Mormont for Viserys. When the ＤISCLAIMER spoke next, they love her, remarked Viserys bitterly as he saw his sister speak in Dothraki about how her son would be named Rhaegar in honor of her brother who had fallen bravely at the Trident at the hands of Robert Baratheon, and the Dothraki people chanted his name, the name of their future call of calls, the name of the stallion who would ride the world. She has truly become a queen this day, remarked Jorah with a sense of happiness in his voice before looking at Viserys, but the man left the tent. Viserys was not having any of what Jorah said, not in his mind. In his mind he was the king of the Seven Kingdoms, not the unborn child Daenerys had growing inside of her. He needed to secure his right to the Iron Throne without contestation, using the rules of succession, which meant Viserys had to take back his father's seat back and be declared king by the High Septon, and to do that Viserys needed an army fast. He quickly made his way to his sister's tent and found the dragon eggs. After getting his sword and bag from his own, Viserys knew dragon eggs, even dead ones, were very valuable to black market collectors, and one of them alone could give him the money needed to fund his plans without the aid of the Dothraki. Don't let them see you carry a sword in V's Dothrak, you know the law, said Jorah while seeing Viserys put one of the dragon eggs in his bag. It's not my law, so their foolish rule doesn't apply to me, replied Viserys coldly, since he didn't believe the laws and rules of other cultures didn't apply to him because they weren't his own. Those dragon eggs don't belong to you, commented Jorah while eyeing Viserys holding the second dragon egg in his hand. Whatever is hers is also mine. Everything she has been given has always been mine to use and take as I see fit, replied Viserys with his eyes going colder. Once perhaps, but not anymore. She has learned to stand up on her own 2 feet and walk on the path of life the gods have set for her. You are still struggling to stand and only know how to crawl like a baby, replied Jorah with Viserys ignoring him. If I sell 1 egg I'll have enough for a ship. If I sell 2 eggs, a ship and an army at my back, said Viserys while he had a wild gleam in his eyes. And you have all 3, commented Jorah with Viserys sneering. Now I need an army, a large army. I'm the last hope of a dynasty, Mormont, the last hope for the greatest dynasty the world has ever seen or known. It has been since I was a child of 5 years, and before my sister was even born I had to beg for everything I have now, yet no one has given me what they have given her in that tent, never, not one piece of it. How can I rule without those things? How can I rule without wealth, fear, or even love? How you stand there looking all noble, all honorable, but I bet you don't see me seeing you looking at my sister. Do you don't think I don't know what you want? Not that it matters, since I don't care. You can have her. She's damaged goods now that Khal Drogo has had her cunt to himself, and in return she can be the queen of savages and dine on the finest horse hearts this horde can provide, with you getting the finest leftover parts of my sister you like best. But you will let me go, said Viserys while getting up to go with the 3 dragon eggs in his bag. You can go, but you can't take the dragon eggs, they do not belong to you. Viserys, not anymore, said Jorah while standing in the man's way. You swore an oath to me, Mormont. Does loyalty mean nothing to you? asked Viserys while Mormont didn't even blink. It means everything to me, replied Jorah with Viserys narrowing his eyes. And yet here you stand in my way, commented Viserys with Jorah nodding. And yet here I am standing in your way, and I will continue to stand in your way until you finally leave those eggs with their true owner, replied Jorah while not moving from his spot in front of Viserys. Frustrated and angry, Viserys stormed out of the tent like an angry child. You chose wisely, said Naruto, who appeared near Jorah and startled the knight. Viserys may be a Targaryen by blood, but he has none of their strength. I swore an oath to serve a true Targaryen. Viserys is a snake at best and worm at worst. He is Targaryen in name only in my eyes, said Jorah with Naruto nodding. Smart man. Now I am entrusting you to stay loyal to Daenerys no matter what. She will need you from here on out. Don't abuse her trust, Sir Jorah, or you will find the wrath of the Targaryens is the least of your worries, said Naruto, before he vanished in a ripple and left the knight to think about his words. Tyrian's cell. Tyrion had been down in his cell for several days now. He had nearly fallen out of it twice after falling asleep and awoken near the edge. The sight of long fall down scared him both times and was sure his life had shortened by several years. Each time in the process he had been given horrible food that couldn't really be called food, and the only way to take a piss or shit was to get near the edge of where the fourth wall of the cell was supposed to be and pray to the Gods, he didn't fall out of his cell to his death in such an undignified manner. In short, Tyrion wanted out of his cell. The scuffle from outside of his cell caught the short man's attention and was startled to see his jailer that was Mord, who was a bit of a dim-witted man, as he was ugly, get his head smashed through the door only to have it pulled back and the whole body was thrown through it to skid in front of the Lannister. He had given a beating quite a few times to per orders from Lady Lisa. No sooner had Mord landed near Tyrion face first did Naruto walk into the room and picked up the man by the back of his tunic before dragging him over to empty spot where the fourth wall would normally be for a cell. Goodbye, Mord, replied Naruto, and threw him to his death. Not that I'm ungrateful for your intervention, but what took you so long? Asked Tyrion with Naruto raising an eyebrow at him. Even if the Lannister couldn't see it. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you wanted to be free from this cell with only 3 walls and is on a slant, so falling out of it to your death is extremely high. If you want, I can seal up the door and you can stay here another 2 days until your usual cheerful self is back, countered Naruto with Tyrion waving his hands in front of him. No, that's all right, I've had enough of this room to last a lifetime. Let's get out of here and go upstairs where the rest of the party is no doubt waiting for us, though I do wonder how we are going to explain the death of Mord to Lady Lisa, replied Tyrion as he glanced over to the view to his right. Well, the cell is on a slant and slightly slippery. If one is not careful, maybe he stumbled and tripped right off to the side, offered Naruto with Tyrion thinking it over. The idea for a second. Works for me, let's go, answered Tyrion with Naruto smirking behind his mask. Witty, smart, humorous, and a fondness for life. He was actually starting to like this one Lannister. The two made their way up to the main room where Lisa was sitting with her son Robin on what was considered the throne of the Vale, surrounded by knights, and was currently speaking to Catelyn. Naturally, everyone was surprised to see Naruto walk side by side with Tyrion, since no one was expecting the imp of House Lannister to be out of his cell without a guard or armed escort. And just what do you think you are doing here with him? Where's Mord? demanded Lisa. While Naruto and Tyrion looked at each other. He tripped when entering my cell and fell out of the opening there. You really should have that fixed. People could be seriously hurt or killed by having an exposed wall in their cell at such high altitudes, replied Tyrion, while Naruto had to hold back a snicker at the response and Lisa's angry red face. Oh yeah, Tyrion was okay in his book, meaning you killed him, accused Lisa with a glare. Me, I'm a dwarf, a tiny man who barely reaches the smallest normal full-grown man here at the hip. Your Mord was a big muscled brute. How could I have possibly killed him? asked Tyrion, with Lisa glaring at him, but said nothing in response since she had nothing to prove otherwise, and everyone here knew it. Besides, Tyrion is here to confess all his past crimes. I thought you would want to hear them since you are the lady and current ruler of the Vale, at least until Jon's son is old enough to rule, commented Naruto, while Tyrion began commenting on some of the more harmless things he did to his sister as a child. While Lisa's glared at him, Bronn and Naruto thought they were amusing. Be silent, you may be a so-called sage, but you are in the Vale and wield no power here. I have an army of the most well-trained knights in all of the 7 kingdoms here ready to kill you at my command, stated Lisa, with Naruto nodding. True, you have the numbers and each knight is quite skilled, but they lack one thing. I do not, replied Naruto, while Lisa frowned. And what would that be exactly? questioned Lisa, with Naruto smirking behind his mask. Speed. I can take down each knight here within a span of 10 seconds or less, or have all the stories and songs about my speed on the battlefield been lost to the Knights of the Vale? How many well-armed knights did I kill and slaughter during both rebellions, with my speed being the key question? Naruto, with many of the knights in the room now looking nervous since they had heard the stories or seen it firsthand, while a few were muttering amongst themselves. Silence, Lord Tyrion Lannister, you are here because you have been accused of killing my sister's husband, the hand of the king, Jon Arryn, said Catelyn, while Tyrion knew she didn't believe it but had to get this situation back on track. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't really know anything about that, replied Tyrion calmly, since he really didn't know much about it, and what he did know wasn't his place to tell. Not that anyone who didn't already know the truth would believe him in the first place. You've had your little joke, I trust you enjoyed it, Ser Vardis. Take him back into the dungeon, only this time with a smaller cell and much steeper floor, commanded Lisa, since she was now in no mood for Tyrion's joking. Ser Vardis moved to take Tyrion back to the dungeon, but Naruto now stood in his way, with all 3 of his eyes narrowing at the Knight of the Vale. Ser Vardis began to sweat when this happened, and more so when Naruto motioned for the knight to take one more step toward him. Is this how justice is done in the Vale? You accuse me of a crime, I deny them, and in return you throw me into a cell to freeze and starve. Whereas the king's justice? I am the accused, and as such I demand a trial, stated Tyrion, with all the knights and nobles in the room agreeing with him, since that was the way of doing things. If you are tried and found guilty, then by the king's own law you will pay with your life, said Lisa, with Tyrion nodding. I know the law, I spent many hours of my time reading up about it to ensure my survival in this world. That does not take kindly to dwarfish like men, replied Tyrion, Calmly good, we have no executioners here in the Vale. Life is more elegant here, less blood openly spilled unless outside on the battlefield where it belongs. Open the moon door, commanded Lisa, and a loyal servant opened a circular door in the center of the floor to reveal the very long way down. That's one hell of a fall, thought Naruto while glancing at the hole in the floor. You want a trial, Lord Lannister? Very well, my son will listen to whatever it is you have to say, and you will hear his judgment. Then you will leave the Vale through one door or another depending on his decision, replied Lisa, with Tyrion still looking calm despite the fact many in the room already knew or suspected what Robin would do. The boy always got what he wanted, and if he wanted to see the imp of House Lannister fly through the moon door, it wouldn't matter if Tyrion was guilty or not. Robin would order the man to go through the door and no one would complain, or stop anyone trying to carry it out. No need to bother. Lord Robin, I demand a trial by combat, said Tyrion, knowing this would keep the final judgment out of the whiny boy's hands and the influential hands of his crazy mother. Smart move, Tyrion. The only way the brat or his mother can legally kill you now is if their champion loses the match and his life. No doubt Lisa would have influenced the boy if the spoiled creature didn't already want to see Tyrion go through the moon door, thought Naruto while other people in the room were thinking the same thing. You have that right, replied Lisa, though Naruto got the impression she also wanted to add the unfortunately somewhere in that sentence. Soon the various knights were in the room ready to be Lisa's and Robin's champion in this trial by combat. Of course nothing was happening right away, and the boy was now getting impatient because of it. Make the bad man fly, demanded Robin with the tone any spoiled child used when they wanted to get their way. Sir Vardes, you are very quiet. Do you want to avenge my husband, asked Lisa, with Vardes nodding. With all my heart, milady, but an imp is half my size. It would be shameful to slaughter such a tiny man and call it justice, replied Sir Vardes, with many in the room laughing with the exception of Naruto, Bronn, and even Caitlyn, since such things were to be taken seriously. Agreed, commented Tyrion smugly. You demanded a trial by combat, Lord Tyrion. Lisa reminded him. Yes, I did, and now I demand a champion to fight for me. I have that right, the same as you, said Tyrion, while Lisa frowned further. My lady, I will gladly fight the imp's champion for you, said Sir Vardes, who was quite confident his skill could best anyone the imp sent his way. I wouldn't be too glad, Sir Vardes. I name my older brother Sir Jaime Lannister as my champion, said Tyrion, to shock of almost everyone in the room. The Kingslayer is 100 miles from here, said Lisa, with Tyrion smirking. Then send a raven for him. I'll happily wait until he arrives, replied Tyrion, knowing the longer the wait the better. No, your trial will be today. You do not have the right to determine when the trial by combat will start, Lannister, only that you can have won a trial by combat and a champion to represent you. Nothing more, countered Lisa, with Tyrion's smile leaving him. Do I have a volunteer to be my champion? Anyone, asked Tyrion curiously, while many in the room chuckled, since not one among them would risk their lives for the imp. I will volunteer. The gods know, if you die the world will be a much darker place and I will be bored out of my skull, said Naruto to Tyrion, while Bronn looked like he wanted to volunteer as well. Had the sage not beaten him to it? Thank you, replied Tyrion with a smile. Are you sure? asked Caitlyn, while seeing Naruto nod and made his monk staff vanish within the sleeve of his right arm. Quite sure. Don't worry, Bronn, when Tyrion gets into another trial by combat the next opponent is all yours, replied Naruto, with Bronn smirking and nodding in agreement. All right then, I have a champion. Let the trial commence, stated Tyrion, while Lisa gave a brief nod and ordered everyone back so the two combatants could fight. In the center of the room several men gave Sir Vardes his full body armor, helmet, shield and sword, so the man was practically impenetrable on all sides. A squire gave Naruto a sword and shield, but the sage only took the sword while waving away the shield. The sword itself looked a little beat up and rusty in some parts from lack of use, though you had to have a keen eye to notice it the closest. Lisa could no doubt get to cheating so her side could win the trial by combat, but Naruto easily used his chakra to fix the weaknesses in his blade discreetly. Of course not to question your combat prowess, but are you sure you don't want a shield? asked Tyrion, while seeing Sir Vardes in his armor. I'm certain. Besides, I think it's time I remind some people just who I am and what I can do when in a fight. If by some chance I die, we'll see each other on the other side, and we can have a couple of drinks. With the gods, I'm sure a few among the seven will find you to be far better company than most of the mere mortals they have dealt with in their long lifetimes, replied Naruto before walking toward the center of room where Sir Vardes was waiting. Fight, yelled Robin excitedly after getting up from his seat and ready to see someone fall through the moon door. Sir Vardes made the first move, his armor creaking with each step, and his feet clanking heavily from the armor. He swung his sword down at Naruto. who blocked it with his own and pushed the knight away with ease. Frowning behind his helmet, Vardis went on the attack again but used his shield first like a ram, but Naruto had surprised him and everyone else by simply punching the shield with his free hand. The impact of his fist had dented the shield to the point of folding, where it was futile to hold or use in the fight. Frowning in frustration at his inability to best the sage in front of Lady Lisa, as well as bringing shame to the Vale in the process, Sir Vardis went back on the attack again and relentlessly tried to slice through Naruto, but Naruto held his own against him, blocking, dodging and moving in an acrobatic sense that made the Knight of the Vale Naruto was fighting look like an amateur, spinning his sword around. In an almost mocking tone, Naruto beckoned Sir Vardis to engage him in battle again, and the knight complied with a series of swings meant to overpower his opponent, but Naruto either blocked, dodged, or punched Vardis in the face with the last one, not meant to hurt the man too much, just disorient the man and make the knight remove his helmet when it was dented enough to become more of a liability than asset. While this was going on, Lisa was getting worried her knight would lose his match, and it was clear the possible victor was slowly becoming the demon sage. She had secretly informed the assigned squire, giving Tyrion's champion his weapons to make sure they were a slightly less than adequate sword and shield, so Vardis would have the advantage with his weaponry. No one would know she had cheated Tyrion's champion, and no one was going to say anything if they did, since no one liked the Lannisters here, and the imp would be dead soon anyway, so his protests on the matter would have been pointless. But for some reason Lisa could not fathom her plan to see Tyrion lose to her champion was failing, and she did not like it when her plans failed. She had done what Peter had asked of her to poison Jon Arryn and write a letter to Catelyn about it being a Lannister plot. It was true in that regard, since Peter had told Lisa about how Jon discovered a truth that if revealed would spell doom not only for the Lannister but himself as well, and she needed to help him keep his actions a secret. Naturally she had no problem with his oh so subtle and loving request to see Jon dead. Lisa didn't love Jon, she hated him. Her marriage to Jon was arranged for her, like Catelyn's had been years ago to Brandon and then later to Ned Stark, but unlike Catelyn's marriage, Lisa's was not one of eventual happiness but of disappointment and emptiness due to Jon's duties as Hand of the King under Robert Baratheon, keeping him in his office or by the king's side most of the time. The only good thing about Jon being in this position was Peter was the master of coin, and in King's Landing the same as her, the man she loved being so close was the only thing that made her marriage tolerable. Many people had assumed Jon was the father of her sweet boy Robin, but she had barely been intimate with her elderly husband, and the time she did it took a great deal of effort on her part. She had been with Peter several days before she had been with Jon, and Lisa only did that because her real love requested it, since he found out about her not drinking moon tea a woman normally drank to keep from getting pregnant. He knew as well as she did that unless Lisa slept with Jon soon after their time together, even her elderly husband would be suspicious of her possible future pregnancy, and of course the possible father. When Jon died, Peter had instructed her to leave for the Vale, since the lands there would need her and Robin to keep the other lords running and in line. All of the lords within the Vale were loyal to Jon and would be to her through marriage and Robin. Once he became of age, he told Lisa to keep Robin close to ensure no one killed him, and could become the new Lord of the Vale until the time was right for Peter to relocate there, where he had promised to marry Lisa provided she did as he instructed. But now she was finding her own plan to carry out Peter's wish to see the Lannisters, and Stark's weekend was failing because of the demon sage. She did not expect to see him here with Catelyn, much less defend Tyrion Lannister as champion. Peter had warned her in secret via Raven about the masked man coming out of Winterfell to help Ned Stark's as Hand of the King, and to be cautious should they ever meet. Lisa didn't believe the sage was a threat despite Peter's warnings, since she believed the Knights of the Vale would win against any such power the man possessed. But now she wasn't so sure. Sir Vardis was now moving slower, his sword swings getting wider, sloppier, and had less power behind them. He was staggering, breathing heavier, and was sweating more from behind the armor, since his movements required a lot of energy. Naruto, however, didn't look winded in the slightest. In fact, the man looked amused, despite no one being able to see it behind the mask, and he kept on baiting Vardis to attack, which the knight easily complied with since his impatience was getting the better of him. Enough, Sir Vardis, finish him off, commanded Lisa. While seeing her champion was weakening before her eyes, they got even more worried when Naruto got within the man's guard to slice through his side, and then a diagonal slash along the back. The sword had cut through the armor into the knight's flesh and caused Vardis to stagger while clutching his side in pain, struggling to stand, much less move properly. The Knight of the Vale tried again to defeat his masked opponent, only for Naruto to move around him and stab Vardis in the back of his leg to make the man fall to one knee and use his sword for support. Normally, I would end fights quickly, but I rarely get in them now, and wanted to take my time to see just how skilled Vale Knights have become since My time away from the world, I'm finding myself very disappointed. You rely more on your armor for protection and brute strength of your sword to finish your opponent's Servardes, but you lack the endurance to do this long term, plus your armor seems to be a bit tight on you to wear and move about, and it's very constricting. Your movements are far too rigid and far too predictable. This match was over before it even started, said Naruto, while standing in front of the moon door with his back to a kill. Him commanded Lisa to Servardes, who struggled to stand and glare at the sage before trying to thrust his sword forward in the hopes that even if the sword missed its target, his body mass would at least hit the masked man to send him through the door, only for Servardes to go right through Naruto's body like it was a ghost and fall through the moon door to his death, much to the shock of everyone there. I do believe that makes me the winner, remarked Naruto, since his opponent not only went through the moon door but had died upon impact with the ground, and thus by the rules pertaining to trials of combat he won. Well, now everyone knows trying to stab him with a sword won't work. I don't know how the sage made his body do that, but considering he won me my freedom, I will not ask, thought Tyrion as he was surprised by how Naruto won, but pleased all the same and was glad his side came out victorious. It is over, asked Robin with a hint of disappointment in his voice. Quite over, replied Naruto, before handing the sword to the scared man who had been his squire for the day and pulled out his staff from his sleeve. You don't fight with honor, said Lisa with her voice filled with rage and hatred. Please, what did you expect? I'm a sage, not a knight. As such, I don't have to play by the same set of rules. You were lucky the fighting lasted as long as it did. I could have cut through my opponent in less than a second if I felt like it. Now, as the champion of the accused, and the victor no less, I do believe Tyrion Lannister is allowed to walk out of here a free man. Or do the rules pertaining to trial by combat mean nothing anymore, countered Naruto, with the knights and lords around him looking displeased, but knew the sage was right. By the laws of gods and men, Tyrion Lannister was allowed to go free. Can I make the little man fly now, asked Robin, with Naruto slightly glancing over at the clearly dim-witted boy. Not this little man. This little man is going home, replied Tyrion while shaking Naruto's hand as thanks for fighting for him, and with a newfound sense of himself that doesn't rely on his family or family name to get him out of a jam, thought Naruto, since he had a feeling Tyrion's time in the cell had indeed produced the wake-up call the young Lannister man needed. I believe you have something of mine, said Tyrion to Ser Roderick, with the Knight of House Stark giving the pouch filled with gold to the Lannister before he threw it to Naruto, who caught it. Thanks, said Naruto while Tyrion nodded. Thank you for defending me. My time traveling with you was an experience like no other, and just so everyone here remembers, a Lannister always pays his debts, said Tyrion before walking out. Here, you'll need this more than me, said Naruto to Bronn before giving him the pouch of gold. Me? Why me? I didn't fight for the Lannister, questioned Bronn while Naruto shrugged his shoulders. True, but you moved to fight for him like I did. I just volunteered for it. 1 split second faster you would have won the match, since you strike me as a man who knows how to fight to win against someone like Servardes. Plus something tells me Tyrion is going to need some help getting back home, and I'd like you to be that someone, replied Naruto with Bronn looking at him and the pouch in hand. And what if he does get into any more trouble, asked Bronn with Naruto giving him a knowing look. Fight for him. What I just gave you should cover the expense of getting him home, and fighting for him should there be any trouble. Besides, if you fight off any problems that arise, you will gain his recognition, if not future employment. Tyrion just said it himself a few seconds ago. A Lannister always pays his debts if you stay by his side from here on out, and a lot of gold will come your way, answered Naruto with Bronn thinking it over. You're sure, asked Bronn with Naruto nodding. Definitely. He has a good head on his shoulders despite his size, and being a Lannister, all in one, you will gain much from preventing other characters from taking his head off his shoulders, replied Naruto with Bronn nodding. Since it was true, I guess I better be off to help my future employer. Thanks. If I didn't know any better, I would say you were a sellsword once like myself, said Bronn while Naruto chuckled. Let's just say being a sage wasn't my first profession. Now run along before your future boss gets too far ahead, replied Naruto before motioning Bronn to go find Tyrion. King's Landing throne room. Ned soon found out what Robert meant about hating ruling more than him. Ned was good at it. Ruling in King's Landing was like ruling in the north, except that the weather was warmer and the sheer amount of responsibilities to run the kingdom were much higher, and the problems were far more difficult to deal with each passing day. And while Ned did do a good job ruling in Robert's place, while the man was out hunting the issues in front of the hand sitting on the Iron Throne, to hear them were making him angry. The fact his leg was still painfully throbbing every so often didn't help either. Currently, Ned was overseeing an important issue regarding some farmers who had their village and home destroyed by a group of men. They burned almost all of the riverlands, our fields, our granary, and our homes to the ground. They took our women, and then they took them again in a most vile of fashions. When they were done, they butchered all of them like they were animals. They covered our children in pitch and lit them on fire, said the Farmer, his voice filled with sorrow at the memory, while his fellow farmers behind him nodded and wept for the loss of their loved ones. Brigands most likely, said Pycelle with Ned frowning. Brigands don't do these type of things, Grand Maester. They steal, they destroy and kill along with other things, but killing women and children afterwards in such a manner, I think not, said Naruto, who was standing beside Ned per the man's request, while the rest of the small council was here around them. The sage is indeed correct. They weren't thieves, they didn't steal anything, they even left something behind, your grace, said the farmer, with Ned now frowning further while thinking about what these monsters among men could have left behind after destroying so much. This is the hand of the king you're addressing, not the king. The king is hunting, said Pycelle fiercely, so in the future please address Ned as Lord Hand, said Naruto kindly, while shooting a look at Pycelle to tell the old man to be polite to farmers who just lost everything they own. One of the lead farmer's companions brought out a sack and emptied out its contents to reveal it to be a fish stained and smelling most foul. If fish, the sigil of House Tully. Isn't it that your wife's house, Lord Hand? Asked Peter while Naruto glanced at him. Of course it is, Master of Coin, you should know since you were once a ward of House Tully as a boy growing up, commented Naruto, with Peter scowling at him. A possible statement is being made against them, Lord Stark, offered Varys while Ned looked at the fish and what it might mean for his wife's home. Did these men have a sigil, a banner in which they moved under? Asked Ned, with the lead farmer shaking his head. No, none, my Lord Hand, but the one leading them was a portly man with pig-like face and small pig-like eyes. When he spoke to his men it was in a high thin voice, said the lead farmer, with the others behind him nodding. That sounds like someone we know, Armory Lord. She was the Mountain's ally during the sacking of King's Landing years ago and was the one who helped Gregor Clegane in his butchering of Elia Martell and her children, offered Peter Baelish, and heard the wolf-like growl coming out of Ned's mouth while gripping the armrest of the throne with one hand and his cane with the other. Why would Amory Lorch turn brigand? The man is a knight of the realm, questioned Pycelle in confusion. Perhaps it has something to do with the Mountain's death at the hands of the sage, and he feels the need to make those who support the killing clearly know of his displeasure. Still, is there any reason he would specifically target your house, Lord Stark? Said Peter, with his tone being civil and hiding his amusement in this turn of events. There are none. Armory Lorch is doing this because he wants to lure Ned Stark out of King's Landing, no doubt at the command of Tywin Lannister, surmised Naruto, with Ned scowling further and clenched his hands tightly. Are you sure it's wise to say such a thing, great sage? Such an accusation is quite drastic without evidence to support it. If the Lannisters were to order an attack on villages under the king's protection, it would be, said Peter, with Pycelle jumping in. It would be as brazen as attacking the hand of the king in the streets of the capital, said Pycelle, with the man seeing Ned Stark's anger grow. I cannot give you back your homes or restore the dead back to life, but perhaps I can give you justice in the name of King Robert. Sir Beric Dondarrion, said Ned, with the knight called on to stepping forward. Yes, Lord Hand, asked Sir Beric Dondarrion proudly, and ready to serve. You shall have the command. Assemble 100 men and ride to the river run to aid House Tully and those loyal to his house to defend it from the brigands led by Armory Lorch, said Ned, with Sir Dondarrion nodding. As you command, replied Sir Dondarrion. By this point Ned stood up from the Iron Throne, ignoring the offered help from Naruto and other members of the small council. His gaze was firm, unyielding, and cold, like a true man of the North would possess when facing down any enemy he deemed a threat. Many knew that look, many feared it, many were in awe of it, and many respected it. In the name of Robert of House Baratheon, the first of his name, King of the Undulls and First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, I charge you to bring the king's justice to the false knight Amory Lorch, and all those who shared in his crimes. I denounce him and detain him. I hereby strip him of all ranks and titles, of all lands and holdings, and sentence him to death, declared Ned fiercely, with the room being filled with gasps from those in court. My Lord Hand, this is a drastic action, one beyond even your station. It would be better if to wait for King Robert's return from his hunt, said Pycelle, with Ned glaring at him. Grand Maester Pycelle, send a raven to Casterly Rock, inform Tywin Lannister that he has been summoned to court to answer for the crimes of his bannermen. He will arrive within a fortnight or be branded an enemy of the crown and a traitor to the realm, said Ned, with everyone looking shocked by his move against Tywin Lannister, with his decision being final. Ned looked at Sir Dondarrion and gave the man a nod to go set out on his mission to combat Armory Lorch. At the same time, the farmers who came here pleading their case to the hand of the king bowed with respect to the injured man and thanked him for aiding them in their time of suffering. Quite a bold move, my lord, and admirable, but is it wise to yank the lion's tail? Tywin Lannister is the richest man in all the Seven Kingdoms. Gold wins wars, not the soldiers who fight in them, not the dead ones anyway, said Lord Baelish, while Ned glanced at him. Then how is it that Robert Baratheon is king and not Tywin Lannister? Countered Ned, before walking away, with Naruto walking beside him. That will get Tywin's attention. You have forced Tywin's hand to make the next move. What he does next will decide what the people of Westeros see him in a bad or good light for what Amory Lorch did to Riverrun, said Naruto, with Ned nodding. The lion seeks to make me leave King's Landing. I on the other hand intend to make the lion leave his domain and enter the wolf's den, replied Ned, with Naruto smirking at him. And they made their way to the Tower of the Hand. You're learning still. There is much you have yet to know regarding the different pieces of the puzzle you've discovered so far. Considering my insight a gift to fit things together for you, replied Naruto before they entered Ned's office and told the man about Jaime and Cersei committing incest with all three of Robert's supposedly legitimate children not really being his children at all. John Aaron found out the truth. That's why he was seeking out Robert's bastards. That is why he was looking at this book. On the lineage of the four noble houses of the Seven Kingdoms, he wanted to see the traits of the Baratheon family tree. Leading up to Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, once comparing those previous family members to Cersei's own children would show they weren't Roberts at all, said Ned, with Naruto nodding. And it get worse, replied Naruto, with Ned frowning. How could it be worse? Things cannot get any worse, can it? Asked Ned, with Naruto nodding before telling him about Littlefinger's involvement and possibly Pycelle's own, since the old man had the book in the first place. Ned was unfortunately wrong. It was worse. What do you want to do? Asked Naruto, with Ned frowning. If Robert is told and we present the undisputed truth, he will kill Cersei, Jaime, and their three children. Jaime could go to the wall like he should have from the start, but Cersei and the children they sired will not have that way out. Robert will kill them all. His rage and wrath will know no bounds. I have to tell Cersei in order to give her and the children a chance to escape, replied Ned, while Naruto shook his head. And tip your hand to the enemy honestly. Ned, I swear your honor as a Stark is going to be the death of you. Cersei will use your actions to move her pawns in place to take out your men, and it's not just her who would move against you if given the chance. You honestly think that slime like Peter Baelish is going to go quietly, or that Grand Maester Pycelle will stand to face judgment for his involvement in this? Littlefinger has more than enough gold and blackmail earned from his brothels to buy members of the City Watch to side with him. Grand Maester Pycelle will hide behind the authority of the Citadel and the Order of Maesters. Those three will unite against you in order to prevent their crimes from coming to light, and they will if you tip your hand early, like your personal honor no doubt compels you to do, said Naruto, while Ned frowned. And what would you have me do? Let Robert kill three innocent children, countered Ned, with Naruto scoffing. First off, it's not three innocent children. Joffrey is an evil, twisted little shit who could be the second coming of the Mad King if he sits on the throne, and you know it. Myrcella and Tommen are a different matter, so I can move to defend them from harm should any attempt to kill them by Robert does in fact happen. Naruto shot back, with Ned shaking his head. I have to tell her Cersei is the only one capable of protecting all three of her children from Robert's wrath. She can get them on a ship and sail to Essos or Bravos to escape what awaits them if they stay here, said Ned, while Naruto shaking his head. Damn it, Ned, you still don't get it. This has to be done without giving Cersei or any of the other conspirators a chance to plot, plan, and scheme their way out of this. Even if Cersei did flee from King's Landing, which is a big if here, what makes you think she will be safe? Say you prove Cersei sired three bastard children born of incest, and the evidence is clear as day for her father Tywin Lannister to see. Do you really think he won't unleash his wrath on his own daughter, his own grandchildren? Do you think he won't use every piece of gold found within his house to fund expeditions to find her and the children in different lands, hire assassins as far the many-faced men of Bravos to kill her and the three children? Tywin will find those four and kill them all. Jaime will be killed outright before even getting onto a ship at any port that will take him to another land, at least by doing things right here in King's Landing. Do you have ability to contain the situation? If done correctly, you can control the outcome of exposing this truth and those who will be involved in the aftermath. Naruto shot back, while Ned flinched at the idea of the old lion Tywin Lannister lashing out at his only children and grandchildren for this. Tywin will not be so easily convinced. If this is brought to his attention, Naruto, he will fight for his daughter and his grandchildren, if it means keeping at least one of them on the Iron Throne, said Ned, with Naruto sighing and nodding. I know Tywin is playing into the hand of Littlefinger if he does. The man wants the lion and the wolf to fight for the crown, or make it seem like a fight for the crown. Not only that, if Cersei does flee with her children, she will take half of House Lannister's overall wealth with her to Essos, and I fear for them all if they do. That side of the world is cruel, dark, and is no place for any Lannister with gold and without an army. Even if Cersei did hire a small army of sellswords, there are richer men in the free cities who would pay more and make things worse. You need to keep this contained, Ned. You cannot under any kind of circumstance talk to Cersei about making this known to Robert. If you do, it will backfire in your face horribly, said Naruto, with Ned sighing. Very well, but I will still tell Robert the truth about this when he has done his hunt. At the very least, the man needs to know. Perhaps he can legitimize the Gendry boy if he were given a proper education, offered Ned, with Naruto nodding. It will be challenging since the boy clearly has some minor education in everything and anything he needs to function, but that's a far cry from being a prince and future king of Westeros. Still, it's a plan if there ever was one. I just hope the news of Cersei's children doesn't kill Robert. The man's heart is not what it once was years ago, and this news just might destroy what's left of his sanity, commented Naruto, with Ned frowning. V's Dothrak call. Drogo's horde was currently enjoying a great feast in honor of him and his wife having a son that would one day ride the world. When full grown, there was drinking, eating, dancing, and all those in the main tent were merry as one can be at such a party. Daenerys was enjoying herself while Yora was nearby as her assigned bodyguard by Drogo himself, and the Khal knew the knight wouldn't let anything happen to her. He knew enough about knights to know that they don't break their word, and Yora had given his regarding the protection of Daenerys. Daenerys, where's my sister? Shouted Viserys after coming into the tent, staggering around and showing he was clearly drunk from too much wine. Stop him, said Daenerys to Yora discreetly in the hope she could stop her brother from making a complete ass of himself. Where is she? Where's my whore of a sister? I'm here for the feast. The horse feast, spat Viserys bitterly while glaring at everyone and looking for his sister in his drunken, deranged state. The sage was right about my brother. He's gone mad, thought Daenerys while seeing Yora's hand getting knocked away by Viserys when the knight tried to grab him. Get your damn hands off of me, you poor excuse for a knight. No one touches me. No one touches the dragon, stated Viserys while Khal Drogo and his men were laughing at him. That would be true if you were one brother, thought Daenerys while Viserys staggered some more and focused on Khal Drogo. Khal Drogo, I'm here for the feast, said Viserys while Drogo motioned with his head toward a spot on the far corner of the tent and spoke Dothraki for Yora to translate. Khal Drogo says there's a place for you back there, said Yora before pointing toward the spot the Khal did earlier. There, that is no place for a king, exclaimed Viserys angrily. You are no king, said Drogo in the Westeros tongue. To the shock of Viserys that he could speak it also meant that Khal Drogo could not only speak the common tongue of Westeros, but he understood everything Viserys ever said about the Dothraki and their entire culture. The heir of House Targaryen had been insulting Khal Drogo, his horde, the entire way of life the Dothraki have lived since they first started raiding the cities of Essos. Every single remark, insult, and comment made against the Dothraki made by Viserys had been heard by Khal Drogo, but the Khal never said anything, and Viserys always assumed the barbarian never truly understood the common tongue of Westeros outside of a few things needed to negotiate. Viserys was wrong. Khal Drogo did understand the common Westeros tongue, he just didn't need to speak it all the time like Viserys, Daenerys, or Yora did, since it wasn't the common tongue in Essos as a whole. The man also knew of Viserys insulting his culture, his horde, and everything else since becoming a part of it, but Drogo had ignored it for the most part simply due to his wife and how she cared for her whiny brother. She was a kind, gentle woman, but had a strong fire in her that when brought out would show. His horde was the strongest around. Viserys was the weak link of his horde as the man whined some more about how he wasn't sitting on the Iron Throne in Westeros as its king, an Iron Throne that Drogo's son would one day sit on and rule the world, a throne that Drogo knew Viserys wanted and would no doubt try to prevent Rhaegar from sitting on before him. As for Viserys, right in the now, he was clearly angry at the insult by Khal Drogo aimed in regards to his kingship and drew his sword. No one laughed by this point, as the heir to House Targaryen being the only one armed with a weapon in the room. Get away from me, Viserys nearly screamed while waving his sword around like a madman. Viserys, please stop, pleaded Daenerys while stepping forward. There she is, there's my dear sweet whore for a sister, my whore for a sibling. Maybe we should question whether the child growing in you is really Drogo's with the way his horde behaves at times. I would say any man here in this tent could be the father of your bastard son and future usurper to my throne, exclaimed Viserys angrily while Daenerys saw Drogo simply narrowing his eyes at her brother. Put the sword down, they will kill us all if you don't, pleaded Daenerys, with Viserys just grinning at her with his eyes shining with madness. My foolish little sister, they can't kill us, not here. Remember, they can't shed blood. In their sacred city of V's Dothrak it's forbidden to shed blood openly. Here I could call Khal Drogo all sorts of horrifying things here worthy of my head being chopped off, but so long as we are in this sacred city the laws of the Dothraki won't let him. Not that it matters, I am a Targaryen, I am a dragon, I am completely untouchable here or anywhere else, stated Viserys while smiling an evil smile at her. Break his arms when I give the order, said Drogo in his native tongue. Knowing Viserys didn't know what he said, unlike Viserys and his arrogance, Khal Drogo knew it was in his best interest to know just what foreigners said when speaking in their native tongue in his presence. Yes, they can't kill anyone because they are bound by their laws, but I can, continued Viserys with his sword now pointed at Daenerys and her belly. Now this made everyone tense and worried. If you kill me, they will not be bound by the sacred laws of V's Dothrak. Not only that, but you would become a kinslayer in the process, the highest crime a person can commit in Westeros or herein Essos, not even a king is immune to such a crime. Viserys, would you become such a man over this? Warned Daenerys, with Viserys scowling at her. If I don't get what I want, dear sister, I intend to take back what I gave this barbaric horse warrior. I want what I came for. I want the crown he promised me. He promised to give me a crown of gold, a crown along with his army to lead back to Westeros to sit on the Iron Throne. That is mine by birthright, not his disgusting half-breed for a Targaryen son growing inside your body, said Viserys, while the maid translated this all for Khal Drogo to hear, and Khal Drogo didn't like it one bit. This will not end well. Someone among them is going to die, and I do not wish it to be Daenerys, thought Yora, knowing it would only take a single thrust from the sword in the hands of Viserys to kill Daenerys and the child. Tell him I want what was bargained for, or I am taking you back. He can keep the baby, since I don't want it, and I don't care about your feelings on the issue, sister. I'll even cut it out of you right now and leave it for him to do what he wishes. Maybe have his next wife for a whore, eat its heart, threatened Viserys, while glancing at Khal Drogo, who now had an enraged look on his face, and it was clear the leader of this Dothraki horde didn't like the silver-haired man's words and intended to handle this in his own way by saying something in his native tongue. Oh no, thought Daenerys with wide eyes. What is he saying? Asked Viserys to his sister. He says, yes, you shall have your golden crown, that men shall tremble to behold you wearing it, said Daenerys without hesitation, and saw Viserys believing her translation was accurate and Khal Drogo was telling the truth. Well, good, that is all I wanted. Now give what was promised to me, replied Viserys, while he put the pointy tip of his sword away from his sister and took a step back. By that point Khal Drogo was beside his wife, and checking her over to ensure she nor the baby were harmed by Viserys. Seeing how she wasn't in any more danger now, the Dothraki Khal motioned for his men to act. Viserys screamed out in pain as Drogo's men broke both his arms and held him down so their Khal could deliver the killing blow. While this happened, Daenerys was watching her brother in pain and suffering, yet felt no sympathy for the man who had belittled her every step of the way during this arranged marriage. A dragon does not cry or complain. A dragon endures and gets stronger from it. You are no dragon, thought Daenerys as she watched her brother cry out more, protesting their actions, calling himself a dragon, and began pleading with her to talk Drogo out of killing him. As this was happening, Khal Drogo took the gold necklace Daenerys had made for her brother and melted it in a pot over the fire within the middle of the tent. After what seemed like several long minutes, the gold in the pot melted into liquid, and was ready for what the Khal had planned. Look away, Khaleesi, you should not witness this, whispered Yora, but Daenerys held firm and stared at the frightened man. That was her brother. No, I must watch. I must see this with my own eyes, replied Daenerys, with her brother now looking more like a frightened child than an adult. Not surprising really, since he acted like a child most of the time, always whining when he didn't get his way, and when they did, Viserys would always criticize those around him. You could do everything and anything he asked of you, and Viserys would still find some reason to speak to you as if you were an idiot or inferior insect he wants to crush. Now he was the insect about to be crushed. No, Dany, tell them, make them let me go. Dany, please do something, pleaded Viserys, while his little sister just stood there unmoving. A crown for a king, stated Khal Drogo while looming over a frightened Viserys before dumping the hot liquid gold right on top of a Targaryen's head. Viserys instantly screamed out in pain, the heat from the melted gold eating through the man's skin into his brain, and soon killed him right there on the spot. Since no blood was shed or seen by the act, it wasn't technically in violation of Dothraki law. The law only stated that so long as no one shed blood for all to see, would they not be punished for it. Khaleesi, said Yora, while Daenerys stared at her brother's dead body. He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon, whispered Daenerys in realization while she saw how Viserys died at the hands of heated gold. Had she been in her brother's place, the gold would have just oozed off her like mud or slime without even leaving a blemish. Not that Daenerys expected fire to harm her, now that the truth behind her family's bloodline was a proven fact from past experience. In this one here with Viserys, she was the last dragon, not Viserys. The Targaryens would not return through a king, but that of a queen, and one with dragon blood running through her veins. The better king is dead. Long live the Dragon Queen, thought Naruto from his spot in the shadows of the tent before vanishing yet again in the lady tent of Daenerys Targaryen. 3 dragon eggs pulsed slightly and awaiting the day they would be born into the world.